Designers and builders, where design meets construction. We explore groundbreaking trends and talk to the pros reshaping our spaces. For your dream home, workspace, or just great design inspiration, subscribe to Designers and Builders.
All right, so my guest today builds interiors the way a master fashion designer builds bespoke wardrobe. She starts with flawless architectural tailoring, then layers in investment art, rare antiques, collectible pieces until a home feels lived in and elevated. Keita Turner is the founder and creative director of Keita Turner Design, a full-service firm working between New York and St. Louis, known for a look that she calls enduring, fashionably classic. She doesn't decorate, she shapes stories rooted in culture, travel, history, and craft. What makes her interesting to me isn't just her taste, is her discipline behind it. So coming out of the pandemic, her clients started building and buying homes in North Carolina, Florida, and DC, and they wanted that same tailored feeling wherever they landed. So she proved her voice could travel. And at the same time, she's doing the harder thing most founders avoid. She's saying no to partial projects to protect capacity for full scope. High trust work. Today, we get into what it actually takes, how designers and builders really collaborate when you're planning around irreplaceable art, vintage pieces, what invisible work looks like before anything gets ordered, and how you keep a boutique studio feeling intimate when you're running complex multi-state projects. Keita, welcome to Designers and Builders.
Thank you so much, Steve. That was an amazing intro. Thank you very much. I couldn't have said it better.
Cool. So tell me, talk about the pandemic. So I can't believe it's like 6 years now, right?
I can't believe it either.
I know it feels like yesterday, but the pandemic expansion beyond New York wasn't a single lightning bolt, more like a measured growth, but out of state. So when you realize that you could deliver this same tailored aesthetic from in North Carolina or DC or in New York, what had to change first? Your process, your team, your own confidence? Can you talk about that? Because that's actually something that like I personally am like, I've worked in multi-states, but I've never in a design and construction capacity. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think that the first thing that had to change was mindset, right? And acceptance. And after that was process, right? Like how can, and making the client comfortable with the process and that this was a doable endeavor,
Yeah.
So for me, I would say in terms of mindset, because you have to also understand too, when you come to New York, a lot of people come to New York like this is the place, this is where everything happens, this is where you come to make it.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic happened, and then you saw people like also people beginning to move outside, people who were rooted here as well begin to expand and move outside. It just opened up my mind. It opened up like possibilities. It opened up like, wow, this is what it looks like to grow beyond borders, right? Beyond zip codes.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say would be the first thing. Like, I think everything in life is first giving yourself permission to think beyond, giving yourself permission to say it's okay to grow and to be able to welcome change, which is hard for a lot of people, a lot of us resist change, right?
Yeah.
And challenge. So that's what I would say was the first thing. And then, after that, kind of putting our clients at ease that the process could still be as seamless as possible. Because I think, as you would know as well, like, things, the nature of our business is that you try to put things in writing. You try to make sure that the client is on board with the plan from concept to production.
Yeah.
But things can go wrong. And that's why even, in our contracts and everything, we have to like allow room for things to, you know what I'm saying? We have to allow room for things
For
to
things to change and evolve,
for
right?
change, or the things that are unknown, because there's always an unknown.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk about like outgrowing a former client base and staying disciplined enough to say no, can you talk a little bit about that? Right. Especially now, it's pretty wild for people to say, okay, this is the design that I want. Right. And they try to pick apart your product and your service. And I remember the first time I said no, I remember I told my wife, I was like, oh my God, I just said no to a bathroom. And then the reason why is because he didn't want to start from the beginning. He just wanted somebody to execute a vision. And I'm like, and I had to say, no, this is not the right look. This is not the right
Yes.
fit. Like, could
Yes.
you talk a little bit about that, especially at somebody at your scale?
Yeah. And I will say too, I think that interior designers, we can be people pleasers, right? And we want to make, when someone comes either recommended or referred, because a lot of our business is through referrals, you want to make the client that referred them happy. You want to feel like you can solve this client's problem, because that's essentially what we are. We are problem solvers. People come to us with a problem that needs a solution, right? They have pain points. So how can we answer that pain point? But I will say, for me and for my studio, at some point you realize, because remember, again, it's referral based. So if you continue to take on smaller jobs like selecting paint colors or doing just the bathroom or doing just the kitchen, it could either end there. I mean, you hope that it will expand to the rest, but you also that ends up being your pipeline, right? Or you end up, and this is what I have found sometimes with clients, they end up being the wealthiest or the most affluent in their circles.
Yeah.
So who are they going to refer you to, right? So that's why
Yeah.
you hear some designers will be like, oh no, we may have started with this client, maybe it was their starter home, but as their careers advanced, then they moved on to another home, then they moved on to a second home, to a third home, and then their circles also are centered around that. So that's where I have found, like, wow, like some of the decisions, because we're also a culmination of the choices we make, whether we decided to move to go left or we decided to go right. So at some point you realize, wow, like some decisions that you make earlier on, they will affect your trajectory, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, like where I've come to the point now, it's like, you know what, Keita, in order to continue growing, you have to make a very hard decision. And trust me, it was difficult. Like even on, my website, I would put, these are the type of projects we work on. This is the budget range, right? And trust me, there were crickets. I mean, that was hard, because when you make a change, either people, I mean, it's twofold. You're making it so you will what is it called? You are creating
Like
barriers to entry.
self-selection. Yeah,
Self-selection, right?
Yeah.
Or barriers to entry. So on one hand, it's great, but on the other hand, you have to be prepared for your phone may stop ringing. And those are those are the growth. It's like a growth spurt, or those are the challenges that can be very hard to deal with. And I think, and I'm sure I'm not alone, I'm sure there are several like other designers that you still have to pay your bills, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The bills don't stop.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I would say that was probably the most difficult point. And there was something else I wanted to bring up. There was earlier in my career, and I know I said I didn't necessarily want to discuss, like get into the nitty gritty or the nuances of contracts and all that. But I remember early on, I had and I hope it's okay that I'm
Yeah, it's fine.
delving
Yeah,
into
it's
like
great.
the story or specific stories. But I had a client where I was charging travel time, because if you're outside of my certain jurisdiction or a certain area close to my office, I would charge not only reimbursables, but also travel time. And so I recall this particular client like questioning, like, why are you charging me travel time? And that doesn't seem right. So I stopped. Now, again, I was earlier in my career, and to also appease this client, I stopped doing that. Didn't do it for years. And then let me just say, one of my clients during the pandemic, who was an out-of-state client, they also happened to be from the financial sector. And they had also they were willing, and they asked me, why are you not charging travel time? And do you know, just like a light bulb went off. I mean, it was almost, I don't know what's the right word. It was almost like, all these years I felt bad about it.
Mm.
And then maybe it just meant that wasn't the right client.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you come across clients that are like, no, you're also consulting. We're also consultants. That's the norm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You're no different than like a McKinsey level, like Bain Capital, right? Like that's what you are, right? Like you
That's
put
what
in
you
the
are.
time, that's what you are. You're a consultant. Yeah, for
You're a
sure. Like a
consultant as
high,
well, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Whether
Absolutely.
you are consulting, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend or fake that I don't still take on consulting jobs. But if they fall below our minimum threshold, then we have a different way we charge, right? Because again, I'm
Yeah.
still running a business. You still have
Still
bills
have
to
bills
pay.
you still have
Still
bills
have
to pay.
bills to
Yeah.
pay. But
Yeah.
the goal, the growth comes in like, this is what we want. This is where, we are not interested in our business being commodified.
Yeah.
Right. And we
Yeah.
know that these level of projects, they exist because you see it every day. It's just a matter of how
Yeah.
do you position your business and your studio to reach that clientele, to attract that clientele, to attract like-minded.
That's really interesting. Circles. And it
And
just kind of sounded like by you inherently serving yourself that you started to attract the right people around you. Is that
around you.
right?
And as well as I thought, when I look back to that first apartment, I remember I was using vintage pieces. I was using items that I inherited from my family, grandparents, parents. There was a lot of creativity put into it, but it was still elevated and it was sophisticated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I recall, as I started, because the tricky thing about when you're working with clients, it's like, yes, you're also, the work you're doing for them has to tell their story first and
Yeah.
foremost, right? So along the way through my career, I kind of found myself doing work that was probably a bit more traditional than I really was. Did not quite reflect the clients that I really wanted to be working with. But then what
Yeah.
happens with that is you tend to, if that's your portfolio, you then
Yeah.
attract what your portfolio is projecting, right?
Mm.
So during this awakening in my business, I also realized that's why sometimes doing show houses or doing pop-ups has allowed me to say, you know what, this gives me an opportunity to work with the level of items, or if they're artisan pieces or handcrafted pieces or blue chip art, whatever it may be. Like, while I can do that on an expensive scale,
Yeah.
you can, it just takes longer. But it was important for me to start putting out work that also reflected my ethos as well. But and part of that ethos is telling a story. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
and I actually will say, When I first started out, when I was working with clients, I don't think I was trying to also help tell their story. Mm-mm. No.
No.
And what led me to that was that I had a project published by Wendy Goodman of New York magazine Curved.
Yeah.
And when it was published, it wasn't even so much about me. Like, I was mentioned in it, but it was really about my client, because Wendy is very interested in the story. And the other thing I learned, and I'm going to circle this back to why sometimes only taking on one room doesn't really benefit you as a studio, and it also doesn't necessarily benefit your client, because it's hard to tell the story if you're only doing one room, right? But if you tell
Yeah.
your client, like, we only work on 3 to 4 rooms, or we only work on full commercial projects, or we only work on, that's how you're able to start telling the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
that makes sense. And I would think
No,
even in
that makes a
whether
lot
you're
of it makes a
building,
lot of
design
sense.
build.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I
So it's
think a
about
lot about
storytelling.
it is about storytelling. It really is. Because I start to think about, if you are working with a client and if you can actually tell. So I just finished this kitchen, and it's a kitchen that some people are like, wow, or some people are
Yeah.
like, that's not my taste,
Mhm.
but the client is absolutely in love with it, and it tells a story of her.
Yes.
She's an artist. She lived in New Orleans, and so I basically created a New Orleans style kitchen, and she's got
Yes.
this really big New Orleans art that was like the focal point, but it wasn't able to come out into the piece. And over the course of the 6 weeks that we worked together, every decision, everything told the story of her. Even we're able to take the material from the countertop and the refinement and to create a tabletop. And so, like, I get it. It's like, you don't want to, in the beginning, you need to like eat it and take
Yes.
what you can. But if you can start positioning yourself and start saying, listen, it's not just about this one room. I want to design your whole space.
The whole.
And then you, as the consultant and as the interpreter, and they're hiring you because of your aesthetic, you are, and your taste, you're able to take what's in their head that they can't articulate and create so you're essentially like changing their lives.
You're changing their lives. You're
You're
delving
changing their
into
lives.
and so when we do start, like, part of our process is we do have, like, once we know we're on board and they're serious, motivated. I got to use that word, motivated clients who are ready to invest in their, whether it's their new build or renovation or restoration, whatever it is. We can't be, as the practitioners, we can't be more invested in their project than they are, right?
1,000%. Yeah. Yeah. You
Not be more
can't
invested.
care more than their client. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't care more than them. But
Yeah.
but we do.
Unless they're paying you a lot of money.
Unless they're paying you a lot, right? Right. We won't turn that down.
Yeah.
But I do ask questions too. Part of our survey, it's a client questionnaire survey. And another thing, I use that to gauge, like, if a potential client's not willing to fill out this 8-page questionnaire,
Yeah.
how invested are you? Because, like, we ask questions about, as simple as, like, what colors do you know? We have bubbles, like, drop down, like, what colors do you like? What do you dislike? Where are you neutral on? What type of furnishing do you like? What period? Now, a lot of people don't know anything about furniture history, art history. Not everybody. But I will say this too. As the longer I've been in this business, I used to think, oh no, you don't want clients that are too informed, or you don't want people who are too much of no. Actually, no, I prefer now to have a client that knows what they want.
1,000%.
Not just what they dislike, but knows what they want, and maybe has where we can learn from each other because we are
They make
co-authoring.
it. They
We are
make you sharper.
collaborators.
They make you sharper too.
They make you sharper, right? They
Yeah.
make you
Yeah.
sharper. Now, yeah, I used to think, oh, it's great to have the clients that they don't really want to, this will be turnkey. They're really hands off. Yeah, one way that's great. But then another way, no, because I think this becomes more interesting, more
Yeah.
nuanced
Yeah.
when we have a
Yeah.
dialogue.
Oh yeah. And it's informed by a perspective, right? And it's informed by
Yes.
like an end goal. I mean, when you work with the client, I said this recently, when somebody hands you a big check and they give you a hug, I'm like, oh my God, is this what business should be like? Is this right?
Exactly.
It's like a happy spend because they get to live with your creation in their life, right? Like for the rest of their lives
Yes.
or however. I have like, I love your work. It's so textured and
you.
it's so like
Thank you.
layered and like almost like multi-dimensional. It feels like you just want to swim in it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
I love that. I love that.
well, it's kind of like, when you fly into New York and you're driving from, let's say you're driving from LaGuardia, right? And you hop over the highway and you see the skyline and the skyline looks so delicious. You just want to
Yes.
eat it. You know what I'm saying,
Yes.
right? Like you're just like,
Yes.
like that's how I kind of feel like with you when I say swim in it.
Oh,
I'm just
thank
like,
you. And I
fuck,
feel like
just
that's
want to
because
like,
I always pick the window seat because I always want to pinch myself. Like, I cannot believe that I moved to this city as a young girl, as a young
Mhm.
woman, and that I still live here. And I'm like, sometimes it's like so overwhelming,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then it's like, I
yeah,
can't believe, wait, how am I even making it?
yeah.
So
No,
yes,
well,
I
yes.
agree with you. And thank you so much. Yes. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
I was giving you some praise, but
Thank you.
the where did that style start to develop from? Was that fashion? Was it your background? Was it like what was it?
Yeah, some of it, I will say yes. I feel that obviously my background in fashion informs my ethos or my aesthetic or I don't know, not positioning is not the right word. Where depending on where your background is, if you're an architect, like obviously space planning, the landscape will dictated the direction in which the sun falls, all of that. Whereas for
Yeah,
me, a lot of times I do you start with your strengths, right? So my strength, is space planning, but my strength is also textures and colors and patterns. Like I really liken it to, like you said in the intro, to a bespoke wardrobe or having a style and having the confidence, because there's a difference between being fashionable and also being, having a style and being confident in pulling that together. But also it being enduring, like long lasting and
yeah,
juxtaposing the classic with the fashion, right? And
yeah,
just that marriage, you want that marriage, building and formulating that marriage is important. And then some of it is gut, some of it is feeling. And you have to realize too, and I think I mentioned it in some of our earlier, the questionnaire. I am not interested in, my goal is that my work does not look like a sterile, perfect showroom,
yeah,
right? With everything perfectly placed, or it looks like you have everything's new, or the accessories are new. That to me, if a project looks like that, I have failed,
yeah,
because it
yeah,
is devoid of and no shade. I mean, I think when you see some of these projects on social and they're just so perfect and they're slick, no shade. But to me and to the clients that I'm interested in attracting, there has to be personality. Like, and I'll give you an example. I had a client like doing their lake house, and they have a beautiful art collection of Latin art, and I love it. Like I just totally leaned into that because I love the difference of also working with people from different ethnicities and different loves and likes and things that they're into, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed, I said, you guys, you travel a lot. You're traveling. Every year you're traveling. I said, because I don't, we're building this and we're co-authoring this wonderful home, but I'm not seeing, like, I could bring in new things, but I prefer not to.
Yeah.
I said, have you ever thought about bringing back artifacts or collectibles from your travels? And I said, I don't have a problem consulting with you or telling you what, like, if you let me know where you're going, obviously I can go with you. I'd love to go with you as well. But if you let me know where you're going, I will research and come back to you with what is authentic, where you should be looking, maybe what shops to stop into, what museums to stop by. Maybe there's a remote artist somewhere in the hills and you know what? They took me up on it, and that's what they've done. Because I was like, we again have to tell the story of you and your family and your interest and your likes, right? Not what I can go buy from a showroom.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's really, there's an artist that your work reminds me of a little bit. Could you talk a little bit about your ethnic background? Where's your family from? I know you said.
Yes, it's okay. So, on the surface, African American, obviously the majority of so my mother's family is from Georgia and maybe the Carolinas, I'm not sure. So the South. My dad grew up in Kansas City, but I think his people come from, especially on his dad's side, Arkansas, Oklahoma, LA, but also Mississippi. But then on my dad's mother's side, interesting enough, his grandmother was from the Pacific Islands. So she was from Papua New Guinea. I've never been there, but I'm fascinated with it because she immigrated to the United States in the late 1890s. But why? By herself?
Oh, why? Yeah.
It's like, how did you get over here? My dad likes to say, well, it turns, she supposedly worked for the Jesse James family. But that's why my dad is like, it's the Midwest.
Got it.
But yeah, so I would say, and then my mom says, that she says there's a Native American on her side as well. I like to say we're all kind of multi-cultured and mixed to some point, right?
For sure. Yeah.
I am African American.
Got it.
But I would love to learn more.
Yeah. Well, there's just a lot, like I said, in your design. It's just like, it feels like layers, right? And
thank you.
And sometimes
thank you. It's funny. Go ahead. Sorry.
And no, it just makes me think is like, okay, how did that palette start to refine itself?
Yeah. And I think again with the story, like I remember it was fun. Remember I mentioned earlier about doing either show houses or pop-ups or something that can stretch you where sometimes you have materials and vendors at your fingertip that you aspire to, you aspire to get those clients that actually can afford to invest in artisan pieces. So I did and it's so funny, this was like a dream. I always dreamed that, I want to do a commercial project on Madison Avenue, connecting my fashion background with interiors. So a few years back, I was a co-chair for the winter show, which is a huge, I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
The 5,000 years of antiques.
Yes.
And I was asked to do a window in the former Barney's.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow, okay. This is my, maybe it's not this full-fledged retail, fashion boutique yet, but it was still like people got to pass by. So for that project, again, I had a theme. So I leaned into my great grandmother's indigenous, and maybe both sides, indigenous culture, right? And if you know anything about indigenous culture, they give back. Everything is reciprocal. They give back to the earth. Whatever they extract, they replenish. So if you look at that project, I use the circle a lot because the circle, whether you're building villages, whether you're building a basket, it all revolves around this circular movement, this enclosed, encapsulated, and everything that dies, it bursts new, right? So if you go back, if you look at that project, that was really so you'll see flowers and you'll see artwork that has connected circles. And even on the ceiling, I used a rug because I had to think, I was like, okay, I don't want to just see this plain ceiling. So I actually had a rug and I had these guys attach the rug to the ceiling and it was just all like jute woven circles. So yes. So there was a reason, there was a story, and there was research. I am a researcher by nature as well.
That's awesome. And that's great when you can start incorporating those little things into your designs, right? Like those little, you know.
Yes. And I love it too with I have a client too her background is she's Irish. Her background is Irish. She visits Ireland a lot. And I loved it when I first went to her home and to feel and pick up on the pride and the joy and her connection to her heritage as she explained to me like, where she got certain pieces, if something was inherited from her parents, like that I love. Again, let's put these, even if it may not be my style or I may not have a cultural connection to it, there's an appreciation because at the end of the day, we all are connected, right? At the end of the day. So I know I'm going off in different tangents.
No, that's great. That's great. All right. So 2 more questions. One is, to keep a boutique studio feeling intimate while running complex multi-state projects, what systems or rhythms are non-negotiable for you now? And where do you still feel like operationally, like there's some friction that you'd love to eliminate?
Well, we are a boutique firm. So that part is just by nature. We can't necessarily avoid that. And I actually prefer to stay boutique and small. But as far as the friction, when you're juggling, if you're juggling more, because we juggle more than one project at a time, but you want to hopefully be in different stages of that project. Like you don't really want to have 5 projects on the burner and be in the conceptual stage of all 5. You want to be in conceptual in one, maybe you're in design development on another one you're in your bidding stages,
Sure.
The next one you're actually in the construction or your final punch list and bringing in your accessories and art and all that, right? So that is one way. It's just kind of making sure that you can handle. And that's why I think it's important to take on projects because if you take on too many projects that fall below your desired threshold, in order to be profitable, you're going to have to take on a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
And then that's where things fall apart, right?
That's where they fall apart. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're running a business. We're all running a business, right? So I would say that's one way, but also having people understand, and I've come across this, which can be challenging. Because on one hand, you want to have some flexibility. You want to be able to, like, I'm not trying to say that we are so stuck in like, this is how we work. Like, you want to have some flexibility with the clients and their investment that works for both, mutually is beneficial for both parties, correct?
Yeah.
But what I have found is some people they think that what we are doing, they commodify our business. They feel like, well, you're just a shopper, or you're just procuring, or I just need a sofa, or I just need a rug, or I just like, no. Because technically they can do that on their own, right?
Yeah.
There is like having, making sure the client understands that you have to plan. There is a process from concept. In order for us to solve your problem, we still have to start with, this is the concept, these are the schematics, this is how we start to develop in order to solve your problems successfully, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that would be the biggest challenge, is just not letting your clients also dictate or manage your business.
Yeah. For sure.
I hope that answers that question.
No, it did. For sure. Sure. Keita, thank you so much for your time.
No,
I really,
thank
really
you.
love talking to you.
I love talking to you too, and I hope we can do it again. And as our businesses develop and grow, we can
absolutely and
do this again.
Absolutely. So tell everybody your website and your Instagram.
Yes. So my website is Keita Turner Design. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to give you my email. So my website is KeitaTurnerDesign.com, or you can also go to KeitaTurner.com. And my Instagram is at Keita Turner Design.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Keita, for your interview, your time, and sharing your work and your process
Steve.
with us. All right?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it all.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.